are returning here to watch this video, welcome back. Glad to be here. I'm going to do something a little different today because this is where academics and alopecia cross over. Funny enough, I had a class assignment where I had to pitch a product, and for my product I chose to do an advocacy brief about alopecia for my Women in Health course. I'm going to provide some information about alopecia, different solutions and ways to prevent developing alopecia, and a lot of information regarding the disorder, how to get it, how to hopefully avoid it, and just some changes that we can make, especially as Black women, to avoid this. And if we can't, because if you have the type of alopecia that I have, it's not really avoidable. Just different ways to deal with it and make life a little easier. I know from my experience that your self-esteem can really take a hit. You go through all these different shifts of what to do and how to hide it and who's looking, and I'm hoping with this channel and with this brief in general, I'll be able to provide some solutions and help everyone out just a little bit more. Okay, so Afro-ethnic, or for simplicity, Black hair, is very different from the hair of others. So no, your kinky hair is not going to be like white people's hair or Asian people's hair. We have very unique features. These features can make it home to certain conditions and diseases because we have fragile hair structures. The inner structure of our hair and the cultural habits of our hair styling can, like chemical treatments, getting perms, straightening your hair, using flat irons repeatedly, all day back to the antebellum period. And we really start getting perms, a lot of Black girls, as little kids. So you're in kindergarten, but you have just for me in your hair. So our hair is prone to certain conditions and diseases, but there are only a few studies that have been published regarding our hair and the cultural influences that make up the conditions that our hair faces, like different scalp conditions like dermatitis and alopecia. So characteristically, our hair contains more types of melanin and is therefore darker. And when we're doing certain treatments like lightening it or dyeing it, it takes a lot of damage. Our hair follicles typically are asymmetrical and they have a curve to them. That follicle is responsible for lower resistance and higher susceptibility to breakage when compared to other races and ethnicities and their hair types. So with that being said, our hair follicles are also prone to irregularities, and this affects the amount of water. So this is where we get into low porosity or high porosity of what kind of products and how much water our hair can absorb, and which proteins our hair can absorb and how they work together. And when they don't, they create knots, which can make our hair even more fragile. So the uniqueness of our hair follicles is not all bad. It has its advantages, some of which regulating our body temperature. It makes us less susceptible to getting hair lice, and that's not really all bad. And it helps us like not get as dehydrated as it keeps in fluids and sebum. Getting into alopecia, there are multiple types of alopecia, and there are multiple types of alopecia, and it includes, but it's not limited to, hair breakage, that's referred to as APTN, short anagen syndrome, traction alopecia, alopecia areata, which is what I have, and scarring alopecia. APTN has a really long name, and that's going to be listed below. It's caused by manipulating the hair with chemicals, heat, overcombing or overbrushing the hair, and it breaks the follicles very close to the scalp, and that trauma at the proximal end just makes it so that the hair is not growing. Another one is short anagen syndrome, and this is diagnosed through observation. You typically see this, and it's easier to diagnose in children, like smaller children, and it's characterized by the lack of hair growth and a short hair growth stage, because our hair grows in at least 3 stages. Sometimes you see it in people who wear a lot of braids and other protective styles, and they're wondering why they're not seeing any growth. It could be because they have this short anagen disorder. Another is traction alopecia, and you really see this commonly in black women, and it's a result of years and years and years of manipulating our hair and putting tension on the hair follicle. So this is where people are like, oh, she don't have no edges, and it's like, sis, it's because of us constantly manipulating our hair and causing trauma to those follicles, and it's just a result of those practices. There are things we can do to change that. So alopecia areata is commonly misdiagnosed as traction alopecia. It's the type of alopecia, again, that I have, and it's characterized as non-scarring and caused by autoimmune disruption. I typically have my hair fall out when I get really stressed, and my immune system is like, what's going on? With this condition, the immune system attacks the hair follicles and registers it as foreign, and it's really, really unpredictable. Your hair can be falling out in one place and growing in another, which we saw in my last video, which I will also link. There's no true way of controlling them. It's not about your diet. It's not about your stress. It doesn't really matter what hair products you're using. It's going to happen. There are some treatment options available, but with alopecia areata, it's your immune system. There's not really very much you can do but strengthen it. It's possible for your hair to grow back with any of these conditions, but the results vary based on if there are still follicles present and if it's scarring. So with scarring alopecia, it could be caused by trauma. And there are a few different types which will also be listed below. Typically with this, the hair breaks off and there's damage to the scalp. So if someone gets a brain surgery and they have a scar, more than likely that scar will not be able to produce hair follicles. Your alopecia may be caused by genetics. It's something that we don't really discuss, where there's like a female pattern baldness, but it exists and there are treatment options for that as well. So when we start talking about chemicals and causes for hair loss, you always hear the jokes where people are like, oh, well, the only reason my hair isn't long is because my mama put a perm in my hair when I was real young. That's not wrong. So formaldehyde is widely used in hair products, and they're largely used by black people as we try to conform to standards that have been set for us. So hair straighteners, keratin treatments, anti-frizz products, based on the research, they have compounds that either degrade into formaldehyde or are straight up and down formaldehyde, even though some of these products say they are formaldehyde free. Other names to look for are formalin and methylene glycol. Products that contain harmful chemicals can cause infertility, asthma, alopecia, fibroids and other diseases, and some cancers. And some products that have been exposed for this are Luster's Pink Classic Light Oil Moisture. And I'm like, how many of us use Luster's Pink Lotion growing up? Organic Root Stimulator Hair Mayonnaise, ORC products, VO5 Moisturizing Oil, the John Frieda Collection, Soft and Beautiful Just For Me No Lie, Perms and Relaxers. But all hair products are not bad. There are some other brands that promote organic, cruelty-free products with few or no harmful chemicals, like Jane Carter, some Cantu products, which was shocking to me, As I Am, and Three Sisters of Nature. But it's always best practice to check and literally look up every ingredient, because sometimes they're just listed under different names or listed under fragrance. So outside of just the products, we also have to talk about styling. Hairstyles that place a lot of tension, like box braids, which I loved before I had alopecia, twists, locks. If they're not properly maintained, you can develop alopecia. Hair extensions, including getting braids with human hair, because they can cause allergic dermatitis. If you are not rinsing those chemicals off that hair, or it may even just be the fibers that they're processed with, that can cause you to develop dermatitis on your scalp, and that can cause your hair to fall out. There are also hairstyles like glue-ins and sew-ins that have a combined method for them to go in. So if you're braiding and gluing or putting thread on your hair that's creating tension, you could develop alopecia. So the weirdest part is, how do I camouflage this? How do I deal with it if I have it? Well, sew-ins and tracks and some braiding styles. Some people straighten their hair in order to do not really a comb over, but a cover up. There are also products like coloring sticks that you can use to color in, or some fibers that you can spray on, like Topics fibers, to cover up the spots, and those help but could also be contributing to the problem overall. You could also try wigs, and when removing them, just make sure that you're carefully removing any pins that you may have, or if you're using Got2b glue or other adhesives, that you are actually taking your time to take it off instead of just ripping it off and rushing the process, because you're literally ripping your hair out. Same thing with taking your glue ends down. For those of us that are still wearing glue ends, you have to be really, really careful, because there's a chemical bonding an outside hair strand to your head. It's really a matter of embracing and wearing other styles, including a natural hair. Finding products that use less problematic chemicals, because honestly, it's never going to be 100% foolproof unless you're making your own things at home, and even then we have to be careful. And honestly, we have to give our hair a break. Sometimes we just need to not style it and to let our hair breathe. Some ways we can make this happen is really not all on us. Acts like the Crown Acts are a great step into the future and changing the way people perceive our hair. But even if the whole world was to learn to accept black hair as it grows from our scalp, we still have to account for taking care of and maintaining our natural hair.